Paramount buried a Martin Scorsese crime epic that would have changed everything, and the reason they killed it is something they never wanted you to know. For nearly a decade, Paramount Pictures held the rights to a film that would reunite Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci for the first time in a generation. It was greenlit, it was funded, and then it vanished from their slate entirely. What killed it wasn't the script, it wasn't the cast. It was something far pettier and far more revealing about how Hollywood actually works. The story began in 2004, when Robert De Niro read a book called I Heard You Paint Houses, a mob memoir about a hitman named Frank Sheeran who claimed he killed Jimmy Hoffa. De Niro optioned it himself. He spent years chasing Scorsese to direct it. Screenwriter Steve Zaillian, the man behind Schindler's List, wrote draft after draft. By the early 2010s, Paramount had the project in active development, with De Niro attached to star and Scorsese attached to direct. This wasn't a rumor. This was a real, funded production moving through the system with two of the biggest names in film history behind it. Here's where it gets real. Paramount didn't just option the book, they committed to it as a prestige tentpole. Internal budgets from around 2014 put the film in the $100 million range, largely because Scorsese wanted to de-age his actors digitally rather than cast younger performers, a technique that had never been attempted at that scale for an entire film. De Niro, Pacino, and Pesci all verbally committed. Paramount had its awards contender. Trade press covered it as inevitable. This was as real as a green light gets, a signed cast, a finished script, a studio commitment on paper. But then the number kept climbing. What started as roughly $100 million crept toward $125 million, then higher, as visual effects houses warned Scorsese that de-aging 3 actors across an entire 3-hour runtime was more complex than anyone had budgeted for. Paramount's parent company, Viacom, was under new financial pressure, tightening greenlights across the board. Executives who had championed the project began quietly distancing themselves from it. The math had stopped making sense to the people who controlled the checkbook. And here's the part they never wanted reported. Paramount didn't kill this film because they doubted Scorsese, or doubted De Niro, or doubted the story. They killed it because of ego and arithmetic. A film with no franchise potential, no sequel, no toy line, and a budget pushing $150 million was, to a corporate board answering to shareholders, a rounding error they couldn't defend in a quarterly earnings call. Remember that signed deal, that verbal commitment from 3 legends? Here's exactly where it died, not in a script meeting, but in a budget review where an executive looked at the de-aging cost overruns and simply said no. Paramount didn't believe the film would fail artistically. They believed it would fail as a shareholder story. That's the distinction nobody wants to admit. Sometimes a great film dies not because it's bad, but because it's unprofitable to be proud of. Netflix ultimately stepped in, paying somewhere between $105 and $159 million to fully fund it as The Irishman, turning Paramount's abandoned prestige picture into a Netflix original, and later, an Oscar nominee for Best Picture. Think about what that means. The film Paramount buried became one of the most acclaimed movies of 2019 for someone else. Had Paramount stayed the course, they would have owned the theatrical release, the awards campaign, the cultural moment of De Niro, Pacino, and Pesci sharing a screen one final time under a Paramount banner. Instead, they handed their own legacy project to a streaming competitor because a budget line made a room full of executives nervous. It reshaped how the entire industry now thinks about who funds ambitious films, not the studios with the history, but the streamers with the patience. So the next time you hear that Netflix poached a legendary director's passion project, ask yourself which studio had it first and simply let it go. What else is sitting in a drawer right now, fully written, fully cast, waiting for the right studio to lose its nerve?